let's get into the case interview fundamentals. Okay, so what is case interview? Okay, so case interview is nothing but a hypothetical business situation that is presented during the interview. Yeah, to determine, especially if, I mean, for example, a candidate like you, right? How you actually think about a business situation, how you think about a business problem and solve it. So I've just given a couple of examples, and we have another example that will solve completely. For example, your client is a coffee chain struggling with the profitability issues. Yeah, how can you help? Okay, or client is a telecom company contemplating international expansion and wondering whether it's a good idea, and they have hired you to help them take a decision. Right. So the first one is profitability as a topic. Second one, international expansion or market entry. So like that, yeah, there are 8, 10 different topics, and the case can come from any of the topic, be it profitability, market entry, product launch, merger and acquisition, capacity expansion, growth strategy, then price increase, and so on and so forth, investments, right? So when we are going to prepare on for any case interview, right? Remember, so once you get the fundamentals right, yeah, then the second phase of your case interview preparation is practice, or I call it variety. So it's very, very important that once the fundamentals are in place, then you get into solving different cases of different topics. These are the topics that I just spoke about, and covering different industries. Yeah. Bear in mind, guys, that given that you are from life sciences or you are from telecom, that doesn't mean company will give you a life sciences or telecom case. Okay, when a major consulting companies interview you, the case, which topic it comes from, which industry it comes from, right? You have no control. They can actually give you a topic which is completely unfamiliar to. In fact, they will, okay, to test your problem structuring, to test your really first principle thinking, etc. Okay, so I just thought of throwing this tip along the way. So this is basically a case interview. Now, case interview is designed to simulate the real consulting project life cycle. And I really feel consulting companies' recruitment process is one of the best. Yeah, the reason being they try to simulate the real environment as much as possible in the way they interview. Now, generally, if you think about the consulting interview is approximately 45 to 60 minutes. Yeah. It used to be 60 minutes. Now at McKinsey, BCG, they have come down to 50. Some companies have even 45 minutes. So there's a range. Okay. And whenever I'm talking about any of these ranges, guys, understand, it's 80-20 almost. Yeah. So in different situations, yeah, some of these limits might not actually or might get violated. So my second interview, yeah, in the second round, in fact, right, actually it ran for 90 minutes, right? So it was an interesting case about a tractor market in Brazil, and we got along very well. We went into the depth of the case, and it literally dragged on till 90 minutes. Yeah, some of the partners, when they take second round cases, they sometimes just wrap it up in 20 minutes. So there is a variation, but generally speaking, yeah, the interview is 60 minutes, and out of that, the case is around 30 to 40 minutes. So 10 to 15 minutes of fit with which you start the interview, okay? And fit questions are the questions which are like, why do you want to get into consulting? Why this particular firm? Yeah, talk about your failures, talk about your successes, talk about an instance when you demonstrated a particular consulting skill, or something from your CV. All these things are under fit. Once the fit is done, then smoothly the interviewer will take you to case. There's no break in between, by the way. If the chevrons show break, that is just a representation, but it goes on, and then there is a case, and towards the end of the case, the interviewer will ask you whether you have any questions for me, and this is how a typical interview ends. Okay. Now, case is, as I said, is 30 to 40 minutes. Now, understand, guys, that how beautifully this exercise is actually designed. So all the four phases, and we are going to go into a lot of depth of every phase. Yeah. So, but all the phases are actually the real replica of the consulting projects. Yeah. So, understanding the problem, so in which we typically do paraphrasing and clarification in casing. Yeah, is nothing but you can imagine the pre-proposal discussion. So, a CEO has called a partner saying that, in my company, this is the problem. So, that first meeting, yeah, and probably a couple of follow-on meetings that will happen so that the partner understands the CEO's problem or the company's problem, right, is replicated in the case in the paraphrasing and clarification, which is the first phase. Okay. Then once we understand the problem, right, the partner doesn't start the consulting project next day. Yeah, he comes to his team, he explains that, what, I met the CEO and he's that these guys have this problem. Why don't we put together an approach to solve this? Now that approach, which consists of a structure of how we will go about it, what all analysis we will do, right? What's our expertise? What are the different kind of tools we have, experts we have, all these things, right, is put together in a proposal, yeah, and then it is presented in front of the steering committee. This entire phase is nothing but the most important phase of case, the heart of the case, as we call it, the structuring phase of the case. Okay. Then let's say 10 companies present their proposals, one of them gets selected and the consulting project starts. Yeah. Then all whatever they spoke about, their approach, etc., or what analysis that we will do, that analysis actually starts happening. Yeah. This is nothing but again the analysis phase of the case, in which typically you will either have quantitative, I wouldn't say either or, quantitative and qualitative analysis are two types of analysis. Yeah. Generally, at least in first round, yeah, you typically get at least one quantitative and one qualitative analysis, so that the first round interviewer can actually assess your skills on a broader scale. Okay. A second round is a different story. We'll talk about that in probably an advanced session, right? But at least in the first round, they'll try to give you something which is more quantitative so that they can check your analytical skill, quantitative number skills, etc., and a qualitative analysis like a brainstorming or asking for advice, etc. Okay. Once the consulting project is done, or towards the end of the consulting project, then everything comes together. Yeah, different work stream, different findings, right? And then those are put together either as a part of report in some cases, or either in some cases if there's a recommendation or as a definite advice, no go decision, then again a steering committee is formed and it's presented in front of them. Okay, this is nothing but again the recommendation phase of our case. Okay, cool. So with that, let me just go to the next slide. Okay, so what are the firms looking to evaluate in consulting skills? Yeah, in the case when we solve a case, what exactly is getting evaluated? Yeah, so there is a four-pronged model of evaluation of any candidate in consulting. Yeah, when we do the case cracking evaluation, and different types of evaluation metrics, evaluation sheets are created by different companies. But at high level, if you try to surface this to a higher level, these are the four skills which get ultimately evaluated. Yeah. Well, first is problem structuring, which is the core of consulting. Okay. So this is about taking a very large and ambiguous problem and breaking it into smaller pieces, which are easier to digest, analyze, address. So when we do structuring, when we come up with issue trees, frameworks, yeah, this is where the problem structuring skills get evaluated. And a lot of people ask us that, I come from a medical background or a healthcare background. Why are they giving me, I don't know, mining and telecom cases? Yeah. So this is where the ambiguity parts come in. Yeah. We in fact want to test you that if you are actually thrown in an unfamiliar territory, are you able to use the first principle thinking, your structured thinking? Okay. Because always remember, guys, when you are solving a problem, and with data, with knowledge comes bias. Yeah. So, in fact, when I coach a lot of senior people who are trying to get into have a lateral entry point into consulting as experts, etc., I always share one statistics with them that the experienced candidate, the highest probability of the experienced candidate getting rejected in case interview is because of the reason called presumptuous thinking. Yeah, an expert, when he or she is given a case in his own domain, yeah, tend to actually jump to the conclusion, overlook a few things. Okay, so fundamental thinking, first principle thinking is something that is very, very important. Second, analytical thinking, addressing the problem in a very systematic and structured way so that it can be backed by logic, analysis, data, etc. There's a funny thing that we used to always say that let's say Steve Jobs and a consultant. Yeah, they are the two sides of the, or two different ends of the same spectrum. Okay, a consultant and a visionary. Why? Because visionary can just tell people, to follow them, and he can easily say, I don't know why, but I have a hunch. Follow me, right? But a poor consultant, yeah, he needs to literally defend every step of why he has done this analysis, why he is suggesting it, right? Everything needs to have logic, analysis, data. Okay, you can't just tell a client that just follow me on this. Yeah, there has to be a data, there has to be a logic, there has to be analysis. Okay, then comes the third aspect, which is synthesis. Yeah, so synthesis is about the conclusion part, recommendation, right? The inference. So can you digest different discussion, different facts, and develop a so what, the insight, the what is it exactly? So analysis, everybody does analysis, yeah. But out of the analysis, that number that has come up, that inference that has come up, how does it matter to the client? How does it matter to the problem with which we started? Yeah, that's the synthesis part. And the fourth part is structured communication. So ability to engage in persuasive communication. Okay, so now see, this is important, and this importance of structured communication is in fact increasing day by day in consulting. Why? Because gone are the days when consulting companies used to just throw a recommendation or report and go away. Now, most of the consulting companies' success is tied to the implementability of the recommendations. Okay, what it means is that it's not enough to just solve problem, but you need to convince the client that we have solved it and now please do it, and probably get that done with them. Okay, which needs a lot of storylining skills, which needs a lot of top-down communication skills. Are you with me, guys? So, I mean, I'm purposely spending so much time on this and trying to give color and relate it to the real consulting, because these are all four things, right? As a skill, you need to develop, okay, and consciously think about while you are solving the case. Okay. Yeah. So before you get into the case, I know this is a very, very busy slide. Okay. I'll just very quickly walk over it because we are going to, any case, kind of use some of these things while we are solving the case. So again, as I said, there are four phases: understanding the problem, structuring the problem, analyzing the problem, and recommending the solution. If you want a screenshot of this, you can take a screenshot of this. So when by understanding the problem, yeah, what do we mean by that? So basically, when I give you a case narrative or a case problem to solve, yeah, then the first phase is understanding the problem. And in this one, what are we supposed to do? Of course, first listen to the case. Yeah, and listen is in bold or in caps, because you really, really need to listen very, very carefully, not missing out on stuff, numbers, etc. Then it comes paraphrasing, right? So paraphrase the statement to ensure that both of you are on the same page. Then comes the clarification phase, where you ask some clarification question, so that ultimately at the end of this phase, you want to ensure that you have enough material to come up with the approach, yeah, or to structure of how you are going to solve the problem. Then comes the structuring the problem phase. Here we develop the framework. Okay, so how are we going to solve your problem? Yeah, so that framework, that issue tree we are going to develop. Generally, there are two criteria which make issue tree, or which you need to check while presenting the issue tree, which is my issue tree MECE and it is relevant. Now, what is MECE? MECE is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. In the sense, when I am talking about different work stream, different analysis. Yeah, all the analysis together, am I covering the full gamut or anything is falling through the crack? That's collectively exhaustive. And are my analysis stepping on each other? Are they overlapping or they are separate, which is mutually exclusive? Okay. Relevant in the sense, am I adding something which is not even needed, yeah, or which is not relevant to the issue tree? Okay. Then structuring the structure it, and of course communicate it in top down. By top down, what I mean by that is you communicate one level of the issue disaggregation at once, and then go to the details. We'll demonstrate that. Don't worry, as we solve the case. Then comes the analysis part. Once the issue tree has been presented and we choose one analysis to do, then you get into an analysis, understand the objective of analysis if it is quantitative, make logical assumptions, form an approach, and of course, walk through the calculations. Yeah. In qualitative, we are talking about structuring your answer and communicating it. Okay. Any analysis, guys, what you are doing, right? Be it quantitative, qualitative, it's very important that every time when you are at the end of the analysis, you tie back the answer of the analysis to the main objective. Okay, so let's say it's a profitability problem and you want to improve the profitability by 10%, and then you choose to start off with, let's say, a revenue side analysis. Yeah, and within the revenue, you are trying to understand how can we increase the volume of the sale. So whenever that analysis is complete, yeah, tied back. So these measures that we are doing of increasing the volume, how are they going to affect the overall profitability problem is the tying back aspect. Got it? Yeah. So you have to tie back the answer to the objective. The last part is recommendation or recommending the solution. So now state your recommendation in as direct format as possible. Again, we are going to demonstrate that. And of course, include not just the key metrics findings, but also include risks and next steps for the client. Okay, so this is a very, very kind of crunched way of telling you the entire phase or process. Okay, now let's demonstrate it. So let's get into the case. In fact, as we said, uh, I always believe in kind of having a consultant mindset, and whenever you are starting your case or consulting preparation, guys, the first thing that you need to do is start believing that you are a consultant. Yeah, from day one. Hmm? Because as they say that basically things get done twice in our life, one in the mind when we resolve, and one in action, right? So in your mind, first of all, start believing that you are a consultant. Hmm? So I'm just giving you one consultant's tool, yeah, which will make your life easy and also will impress the interviewer. Okay, so whenever you are solving a case, yeah, I highly recommend that you use four quadrants notes taking method. It's very structured. It keeps your everything properly so that you can refer back to it, because under pressure a lot of time I have seen towards the end of the interview, the candidate forgets where he has written the number or it's so dirty, the calculation sheet or the notes sheet, that he's not able to literally find where he has done the analysis. Okay, and there are a lot of scientific reasons why we use this. I'll not spend that much time explaining the why aspect, but very simply speaking, take an A4 size or printout sheet papers along with you always with the interview or whenever you're practicing. Divide it into four quadrants. Okay, top left quadrant is where you take notes from the case statement, and also after that you will ask clarification questions, the answers for that. So all this background, yeah, the situation, you first of all document in top left. Okay, top right is where you draw your issue tree or your structure or your approach. Okay, top left you can keep for your calculations. Okay, top right, not sorry, top left, bottom left. I'm sorry, bottom left is for calculations, and bottom right is a very interesting and important quadrant. So throughout the case, whenever you get any important number, important insight, or answer to the calculation, answer to the analysis, yeah, all these things that you think are going to be useful from a conclusion perspective, yeah, you keep on jotting them down in bottom right. I call it so what quadrant. Yeah. Now, why is that? Because interviewers can also abruptly ask you to draw conclusions or draw recommendations. Yeah. You should always have the important insights, separated out so that, in one glance, what to look at, yeah, while designing a recommendation. Okay. So this particular notes taking method is something I will highly recommend. And with that, let's get into a case. Okay, cool. So this is the case statement. Now listen to this very, very carefully. City of Manchester has an economy based on education and tech sector. The city council has decided that they should leverage the historically significant sites and numerous water bodies in the city and promote tourism. Through a persistent pursuit with the World Bank, the Manchester City Council managed to get funding of $1 billion for the development of tourism sector in Manchester. Now they have called you to help them understand how should they spend the $1 billion in order to maximize the positive impact on the tourism sector. Why do we paraphrase? Yeah, we paraphrase for 2-3 reasons, guys. Okay, and I've made a video on this on YouTube. You can watch it later on. So there are one of the reason is to ensure that we have understood the problem and we are on the same page. One. Second, it's also a time buying technique. Now we are doing it step by step, so you are not under time pressure. But generally, this is the time when you also have to think about what are the good clarification questions. Okay, so while we paraphrase, we also kind of ensure that we buy some time for ourselves. Yeah, and the third part is ensuring that we are speaking the same language. Yeah, so there's something called as client friendly communication. Okay, so before you get into the heart of the case, yeah, if you can actually use the similar terminologies, right, as the interviewer, yeah, it's always going to that rapport building will be much faster. Yeah, that's the importance of paraphrasing. Now, from a very, very selfish perspective, yeah, you need to think about these. So when I talk about getting the problem right, yeah, the two things that I want to verify for sure. One is the numbers. If there are any numbers, for sure include them in paraphrase to ensure that you haven't got a wrong number. 13, 30, 14, 40, common mistakes, million, billion, yeah. And now we have displayed case on the slide. In real life consulting interview, you will not have a case displayed. Yeah. So numbers, one. And second is mandate. Over here, what's the mandate? Advise them on whether how they should be spending 1 billion. So that mandate part we should surely put in the paraphrasing. Cases can come from 1 sentence to 20 sentences, as short and as long as that. Okay. So ensure that you always make it crisper, summarize while paraphrasing. So that is about the paraphrasing, guys. What about clarification questions? What kind of questions you would like to ask? So there are different checklists, guys, that we use to think about what are good questions. Okay. However, yeah, understand that the objective or the tightrope walk over here, because a lot of websites you will see people talk about thumb rules. You can ask 3 questions, not more than that. Somebody will say you can ask 2 questions. Yeah, nothing like it. It's not about 2, 3, or 4 or 5. Yeah, you need to ask questions that will give you enough information to have a customized issue tree, customized approach. Okay. Bear in mind though that you should not be asking a question, yeah, which is not relevant at this stage. Okay. So the simple thumb rule that I tell my clients to keep in mind, you asked a question, okay, and if someone asks you, why do you need this data at this point of time? Will you be able to defend your question? If you are able to defend your question, then please ask the question. If you are not, then it's not a good idea. Yeah. So that's one thumb rule, and there are checklists that we talk about: product, market, success criteria, and there are different ways of thinking about it by different case types. This is a little bit advanced. I wouldn't go into that detail. Most of the cases come from the consultants are either their previous projects, okay, or sometimes the part of their current projects. Yeah. So yes, they can make up data at any point of time, right? But they have a full view of the case or full view of the problem. So there is not going to be any mislead per se when an interviewer even does the making up of the data. Yeah. Can you ask any question to them? Yeah. Again, ask yourself that at this stage, do you really need that data? For example, right? So a lot of time when we are talking about a market entry case, people ask questions like, what's going to be the price point of this particular product, or what is the investment that is required, right? So questions with a financial answers. Yeah. Really, I think these kind of questions can hold on. You can ask them at an analysis stage. Okay. For a issue tree stage, yeah, those questions you don't need to ask, or I call it uncomfortable questions, right? So you can't ask too deep questions to make the client kind of uncomfortable. Always visualize that you as a candidate is playing a consultant's role and interviewer is playing a client role. Yeah. When you are starting an engagement, and I think we have related every phase. So this phase is nothing but pre-proposal phase. We are preparing for proposal. At this stage, how deep questions can you ask without making the client uncomfortable? Right? So that is a mindset that you need to inculcate. And of course, then there are certain checklists that you need to keep in the mind. Okay, while paraphrasing. So sorry, while clarifying. So very quickly, some of the best practices we talk about. So listen, first of all, yeah, listen very, very well. Okay. I call it with your heart in your ear. So very, very intently. Do not miss details. Okay. Observe the interviewer's tonality, communication style, etc., so that you can try to match it. Paraphrasing is not repeating everything as we spoke about it. Please summarize and do not miss to verify numbers and mandate. Okay. Clarification. Okay, so this is the way to approach a clarification phase, guys. Okay, so how do you generate questions? Okay, so first thing that I always ask myself is, in the statement itself, is there anything ambiguous? Just to give you an example, if the statement has something like client has had a drastic fall in profit. Now, what is a drastic fall? It's very, very relative, right? For me, it can be 10% fall in 1 month, which is drastic. For you, it can be 2% in 1 month, right? So some of these things which are called ambiguities, yeah, or a client saying that our client is interviewer saying our client is an automobile company that makes luxury cars. Now, what is the definition of luxury car? Is it $100,000 plus, $1 million plus? What? All these are ambiguities. So first try and see whether there are ambiguity which we can ask questions and get it out. Yeah. Secondly, the mandate itself means the product and what is supposed to be done. Do you have any questions on that? And guys, even you can ask what the product is. Okay, now this is a case which is a service case, or this is a different case altogether. But let's say the case is about a pharmaceutical drug. The case is about a refrigerator. Case is about a car. Yeah. And if you do not know a particular product, you can also ask what this particular product or service is all about. Okay. And then the third question that you should be asking yourself is, what will I need for my framework? Yeah. So if is there any ambiguity? Am I clear about the mandate? And what do I need for my framework? These are the three things that you should be asking yourself, yeah, to ensure that you understood it. Okay. Whether World Bank has given any restriction on what to invest on, no, they haven't given anything. Capabilities. See, capabilities is another question that I will probably not ask at this point of time. Okay. See, any problem solving or any initiative has an attractiveness element and capability elements. Capability normally only comes into play if the value proposition is attractive. Okay. So capability question I can hold on at this point of time. Expectations, objective, etc., etc. Yeah, they are all can be clubbed under a single question or single question type, which I call it success criteria. What's the criteria on which client will decide where to put money. Yeah. And over here, the criteria is return on investment, ROI. Yeah. The money availability, it's an excellent question again. So whether 1 billion will be available in trenches, or they will be available at one go at the start. So let's assume that we will have this 1 billion right from the day one. Okay, cool. So let's go forward. So now the second phase is structuring, okay, or issue tree. So this is actually all about ensuring that we have a problem segregated into its individual components. Can you guys take a stab at it? Can I give you 2 minutes to draw your approach? When I say that, help me allocate these funds, or help me allocate where I should be allocating these funds so that I have the maximum ROI. Yeah. How would you disaggregate the problem into its component pieces? We'll go forward on this. Okay. So see, guys, I think always remember, problem structuring is not a definitive science. Okay. One problem can be solved in 50 different ways. Okay. The only criteria that, and this is what you need to be careful about when you are doing cases amongst yourself, and giving feedback basis the answer that is there in the case book, because case book can give one answer, and if someone is telling you another way of solving the problem, it's not necessary that person is wrong. Okay, so that's the reason you need to really evaluate that person's performance using the messiness and relevant. Now, what is relevant? Basically, when you are dividing this, okay, chalo, let me just first showcase you a sample issue that I have created. Okay, so I want to identify first of all those initiatives which will have the maximum tourism impact, maximum ROI. Okay, so what I have done, first of all, I have divided into two. Yeah, I need to generate demand for tourism, and I need to fulfill demand. Right? Okay. So there can be initiatives for generating demand, and there can be initiative on fulfilling demand. Generating demand, I'm dividing into, let's say, branding, travel agents, country tie-ups, etc., etc. How can I ensure that I get more people in my country, in my city? Yeah. Can I invest money in that? Okay. Then under fulfillment, better the existing attractions, build new attraction, and improve support infrastructure. Right? Now, forget about the third branch, feasibility at this point of time. Even if you talk about level one, so let's say level 0 is where I have written maximize tourism impact. Level 1 is the generate demand, fulfill demand, feasibility level, and level 2 is the even more detailed. Now look at level 1, generate demand, fulfill demand. Is it messy? Absolutely messy, right? It is demand supply, right? Generate demand, again, I'm getting into, probably marketing branding part, and, probably getting a few agents and tie-ups, etc. Yeah. So what I'm talking about is, in a little bit technical language, is ATL and BTL, right? Above the line marketing and below the line marketing, right? To make it messy. Fulfilling demand, what can I do? Again, existing attraction, new attraction, right? And I've added an infrastructure support as well, because it's not just about attraction. So identifying the attractions or identifying investments. Okay, so now I'm talking about in third branch, feasibility concerns. So now that I will just imagine when a consulting project starts, yeah, one consultant probably will work on generating demand side initiatives, another would be fulfilling demand. Everybody will create a value proposition business case, come up with 3, 3, 4 ideas. Yeah. Now all these ideas need to be vetted against the feasibility concern. Out of this, which one of them are probably in line with city's branding? Now the city has probably, I don't know, a colonial or some kind of a particular brand. Yeah. And you can't just directly start, I don't know, some kind of a modern thing over there. Or if it is a modern outlook, yeah, then you can't, kind of build a castle over there. So like that, okay. And second is budget. So is it in the budget, right? So identification of the ideas and feasibility, identification, I have divided into demand and supply and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how in a nutshell, yeah, we need to divide it again. So there's a huge science. So how to solve or how to generate an issue tree, how to create an issue tree is a science in itself. This is the point where, guys, in your preparation you need to spend the most amount of time. Yeah, because that we'll see in the analysis, etc., right? But structuring is the main part in which you need to be spending time. Go back. Okay, so relevance, then messiness we spoke about. Have I covered all the analysis? Nothing is falling through the crack, and whether there's an overlap. Feasibility, have I considered feasibility of implementation? And top-down communication. So guys, spoke about one level full, then the level below, and then the level below. Yeah, this is called top-down communication. Okay, and that is something that we need to follow. Let me take you to analysis. Okay, let's do one quantitative analysis very quickly. So imagine that the structure is done. Okay, so I'm not starting on that particular analysis, but just to give you an exposure of two types of analysis, this analysis I have planned. So let's imagine that following data is gathered about the potential renovation project that can be considered, yeah, for the deployment of funds. Okay, this is the data for you guys. Yeah, which monument should be renovated using this data? Can you do the calculations? The data is, guys, this data is not sufficient. Okay, you will need some more data. So uh, consider this information. Okay, casual visitors are those who come to Manchester for education and work purpose and visit the historic monument. Tourists are those who visit Manchester for the purpose of sole purpose of tourism. So casual visitors spend $5 on their visit, and tourists spend $50 on the visit. Yeah, 5 and 50. Now, can you do calculations? Here is the calculation, and I think anyways I'll share the deck with you guys afterwards. So just to speed it up, if we do it for all the three monuments, then basically the numbers are 18.5, 29.2, and 13.75. So clearly, I think monument 2 is going to give us a better ROI. Yeah, that's the quick inference out of it. Very quickly, to give you some best practices over here. So how to go about it? So data sanity and sufficiency check. Yeah. So first of all, whenever a data is shared and you have analysis in mind, never assume that you will have the exact data that you wanted. Yeah. You wanted 2017 to 22 data, and the interviewer might give you 16 to 21 because that is what he has it. Okay. You might needed a sales in number of cars. He might have sales number in number of dollars. Okay. So always check first, what have you got? Yeah, check the title of the charts. If there are footnotes can be really tricky. Yeah, so there can be some caveats that you completely miss in footnotes. XY axis. So check what's the data that you have got. If there any query, please ask the interviewer. Second is data sufficiency. Is this data enough for me to do the calculations? Yeah. If not, ask the interviewer that do you have a data, or should I make logical assumptions? Okay. Third, is my calculation efficient? Once you have data, then in your mind you should form an equation. Remember, in the number aspects of the case evaluation, there are only two flags or two evaluation criteria. Okay, accuracy of mental math and ability to set efficient equation. Accuracy of mental math is very simple, means just very simply speaking, don't do silly mistakes. And second is efficiency, in the sense, if a particular calculation can be done in 5 steps, but you are taking 7, which means you are not efficient. So build a logic, okay, and then communicate that logic and number calculation while you are doing it. So if you see a lot of see some of the cases that I have also posted on LinkedIn, etc., the live cases, you would have realized good candidates talk even about 5 into 2 is equal to 10. I'll add 5 to 10 is 15. So you might say this is like a kindergarten or what, right? Why are they speaking about it? But thinking out loud is a best practice. Yeah, it's a technique to ensure that the interviewer is with you, and if there is any mistake, he stops you then and there rather than having a snowball effect of the same mistake. Okay, so think out loud. That's a best practice. Yeah. Now, I want to give you exposure of another very quick analysis, which is the qualitative or subjective analysis or brainstorming. Okay, and I'm literally moving you from one topic to another now. So imagine that the interviewer poses you this next question: Manchester Airport is running at 90% of its capacity. How will you evaluate whether funds should be used on the airport or not? Yeah, brainstorm. Yeah, the reasons or the ways that you are going to evaluate whether investing in airport is a good idea or not. I'll give you 15 seconds for you to think and shoot. But guys, always structure it. Even in brainstorming, yeah, all your points are correct. Yeah. But imagine if you take a laundry listing approach, yeah, then you don't know what you have missed out. Okay, so do listing, and in fact, you will realize, or you would know that a human brain defaults to listing whenever we are brainstorming. But we need to hold that monkey for a few seconds, and first of all, structure. Yeah, that before brainstorming, what are the buckets in which I should brainstorm? Okay, so just a sample structure that I have put, and it doesn't have to be the primary main structure like big structure. It can be very simple. What is urgent? What is important? What are advantages? What are disadvantages? What are the input side point? What are the output side point? What are the financial point, non-financial point? So just create a messy structure, okay, and then put your points there so that you know if in a particular bucket you don't have points, or your brainstorming points are missing somewhere. Yeah. So over here, I've just kept a very simple value structure, right? First of all, is 90% a problem, first of all, yeah, for our ultimate game? Then is the fund sufficient? Yeah. And with the fund, will we get the best ROI? I'm not saying this is the only structure. There are hundreds of ways to do that. I think the last person did a revenue and cost versus cost. That's also fine. Yeah. But this structure or this kind of structure you can use so that you can generate maximum amount of number of points and good points in the brainstorming. Okay, so do not jump to listing mode. Structure everywhere. Yeah. Okay, so I'll probably kind of take you through the recommendation already. So this is the last phase, yeah, at the recommendation. And guys, understand 99% of the cases are they don't complete, because if you take any problem to solve any case, on an average at L1 level 1 you have three issue branches. Yeah, right now also we had three. On an average at level 2 you have two sub branches, which means to crack any case fully you need to do 6 analysis. And in 30-35 minutes, forget about 6, forget about 4, even 2 analysis you can't do, right? And the time is over. So expect the interviewer to stop you and say, okay, great, I think we are running out of time. Can you very quickly recommend basis whatever we did? Okay, so you should be ready to recommend very quickly. Follow this particular format that I'm using, right? But anyway, so while you are drafting the recommendation in your mind, yeah, ask yourself these questions. First of all, am I answering the question? The success criteria that we set out, yeah, your recommendation should be around that. Yeah, don't drag yourself to something different. We are talking about ROI and you telling something else, yeah, is not a good idea. Then when I do recommend, am I justifying? Okay, am I adding all the why points? And lastly, am I adding the next steps or risks in this particular case? Yeah. So this is a sample recommendation. There can be hundreds of versions of this, and again we'll share the slide and the video in any case. So go over that, form your own recommendation. Yeah. So just to summarize, guys, what we tried doing today, right, is to have a renewed understanding of what is case, how does that fit in the context of consulting recruitment. In case, what are they exactly trying to evaluate you on, right? How does a case flow? What are the different phases? Yeah. And we tried demonstrating that using a very simple example. Okay. So just to ensure that we get the structure right in our head. Yeah. The skeleton right. Okay. But it's at that level, you really need to go 10 levels deeper. Yeah, in order to face the real interviewers. Yeah, but that's a journey. Yeah, and your journey just started. Yeah, I'm sure some of you in an intermediate kind of a state of preparation. Okay. However, all of you us has to have to go through that journey from being a very novice to a particular level of foundation, then intermediate, and an expert phase where you can actually go and crack McKinsey, BCG, Bain cases. Yeah. So all the best for that.